Okay, cheers and salutations. Welcome to a very special episode of Hard Lens Media because, while we are focusing on the presidential election cycle, it is important that there are other seats up for grabs, especially at the local level, city level, county level, and state level. Because, again, there are other elections taking place. And I know a lot of you are burnt out by electoral politics, but there are some seats that we must consider and look into in regards towards making our lives easier, better, safer, cleaner. And we've covered a lot in regards towards environmental pollution, environmental racism, as well as the fact that our infrastructure is falling apart. If you may recall, Hardlands Media did not one but two documentaries in Indiana in regards towards regulated toxic waste being diluted. Dilution is a solution into Lake Michigan and also into our air as well. We've also covered many activists and organizers talking about of course, our clean drinking water. And already, folks, it's been 10 years since the crisis in Flint, Michigan, and the crisis is still ongoing. It's a sad story that's all too familiar. And there are people who are running for local seat levels that regulate over our waters. And more importantly, the reason why I'm talking about this is because we've had a guest come on our show. You may remember her. Her name is Sharon Waller, and she was running for the district for in regards to keeping our, especially here in Chicago, keeping our water safe and clean. And because she was being blocked out by most of the local media as well as a few other sources, and wasn't really getting much attention, it's because of our interview and a few others that she was able to get enough boots on the ground to get elected. So a little bit of an ego right here. We actually helped somebody win their office. And it's not the first time. It's not the first time Harlan's Media pulled this off, especially at the local level. But I'm going to introduce her herself. Here she is, Sharon Waller for Water. Good to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. So I was actually, your team reached out to me when Jimmy Dore actually came here to Chicago. I spoke to one of your volunteers, and they helped facilitate actually getting you back on the show. So, for our viewers and subscribers, can you reintroduce yourself? Tell us exactly what was happening the first time you were running for office, and what is significance right now of at least battling to make sure that Chicago and Chicagoans, or everyone in Illinois in particular, have safe, clean drinking water. So the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thanks, Kit. I mean, it's lovely to be back with you, to be able to thank you for this forum for independent voices. It's crazy to me that environmental protection, clean drinking water is a little bit outside of the two-party system as far as local issues. I was totally shut out of all political discourse. And then you might be aware that there is a ton of fear from downtown all the way up to the north side of Cook County about 501c3's restriction on political voice. So because I bumped up against that so many times, I actually reviewed the IRS bulletin about what you can speak about at 501c3s. And it turns out that as long as you're fair, invite all legitimate candidates, and give equal consideration, like time and similar questions, you can do forums. But that is not what I experienced. It's been fun running as an independent. Body checks the door sometimes, refusing to be let into the room. And I'm like, I'm just a 30-year water engineer. I'm just here for clean water.
So, but I do find it fascinating that even for such a local office, and again, folks, don't dismiss local offices. They do matter, and dare I say it, they have a far bigger impact than you would see, let's say, at a presidential race. And we've said on the show before, look, no matter who sits in the White House, it's not going to matter. And not to mention when the big money comes in, they're going to outweigh us. However, at the local level, levels where things can happen. You start from the ground up to create big change. So I'm rather surprised that there was such a massive movement to suppressing your campaign. And I think I'm going to take this a little bit. It's not just only Hardlands Media. There were two other media outlets that also gave you a boost in coverage. But this is rather disheartening to see that independents, even at the local level, are being denied and dismissed, when in all reality, we need to hear from all voices. And I believe in order to have a robust democracy, you got to have a robust republic. You have to have diversity. You have to have inclusion, and it needs to be fair. What is one of the learning lessons that you, or at least what did you take away from at least running as an independent, and more importantly, at least trying to get your campaign out there. I mean, what was the reaction from people when they're hearing that you're running for this office? And more importantly, you're being dismissed from a lot of people because this is a huge win. I mean, you won your seat, but now you're up for reelection again. So I want you to at least share that part of your story.
Well, if I could answer that question with discussing success first. So the
Okay.
reason for which I run is very specific policy that is going to help us adapt to climate change. So my number one first goal was to repeal a prohibition on water reuse in the state of Illinois. We are the only state in the United States that has a prohibition in our source water code. And we did it. So I ran 4 times before I won that primary. And sometimes I see people out and they're like, didn't you win? Didn't you run before? And I'm like, thanks for noticing. But everywhere I go, I am about the issues. And I did really make a focus of trying to meet state reps and senators that I could talk to about the legislation. And after I ran in 2022, there were 2 bills advanced. One passed, but I have to tell you, it was stalled because I was running. So
Wow.
apparently the powers that be realized my game plan. You know, it's about passing legislation. And that's the beautiful thing about local office, just like you said. So as a water commissioner, speaking from the water perspective, I can talk to every single one of our state reps and senators and find those few that are interested in advancing legislation. And then it becomes their baby. And I can just recede to the background. So in that respect, my one voice becomes many.
Mm-hmm. So,
and that's how that bill passed. But it was fascinating to me. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, so I was like, I don't know, why is it not passing? And I talked to some allies of those that blocked, and they're like, oh yeah, that is totally what happened. They were blocking the bill because you were running against their guy. So
listen, I've been in this business for 7 years. Start off wide-eyed and idealistic too, especially when we were on the streets to the radio. You're not being conspiratorial. There is a whole system designed to keep independents, Green Party, libertarians, socialists, non-affiliate party people who are being suppressed. It is something that is shockingly familiar here in regards to Hardlands Media. We've interviewed so many candidates running for different offices, and the story is always going to be the same. And some members of my audience are even saying, Kit, at the local level, that's where Democrats and Republicans start off their teams. It's where they want to keep everything. The last thing they want is an independent. So now let's get to the big issue at hand. What are some of the threats right now impacting, I guess, Chicago, Illinois, and look, let's be clear here, folks. Lake Michigan borders a lot of states, so it's what's going to impact one part of the lake is going to impact every part of it. So, what are some of the issues and concerns in regards towards Lake Michigan and the water, all of Illinois' water, being safe for the people to consume and use? Because right now, there are stories of chemicals being found in people's drinking water, man-made accidents happening that's impacting the environment, and of course, a crumbling infrastructure, most notably here in Chicago, lead in our drinking water, very similar to Flint, Michigan. What are some of the concerns, issues, so that people can actually, number one, go out and support you, but also what we need to do to be prepared to preserve the water for the next generation to come?
Yeah. So that bill did pass, but it got watered down. So it is may repeal the prohibition instead of shall. But the legislation, our city government is now authorized to repeal that prohibition and authorize rulemaking. So the legislative box has been checked. So that issue kind of bounces back to me in my professional career as a water engineer, working with my professional colleagues to create a working group that can work with our state government to pass those rules. We have got to view our water in the context of the natural water cycle if we are to adapt to climate change. So Illinois is a little unique. So we are the only state with a massive water allocation that allows us to flush billions of gallons down the Illinois to the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico every day. And pair that with our lake level rise is varying much more greatly over a shorter period of time. So we've got greater extremes, greater highs, greater lows, and the time between is shorter. So 2013 was a massive high level water that flooded downtown, and it was about to overtop our locks. And that's something that the lock operators never had to face that before. So our infrastructure is already extremely borderline for dealing with high water levels in the lake.
Now, wait a minute. Hold on. So Lake Michigan, the water levels are rising up, and our entire and I'm familiar with the dock. So in case people who don't know, when you're, let's say, taking a wonderful tour on the Chicago River, occasionally some of those tours actually go into Lake Michigan, and the docks have to open up, rise up the boats so they can go in and out. But how much pressure are these infrastructures, or at least these machines are under? In regards towards, I guess, things working properly? Like how great has the increase in Lake Michigan's rise and fall severely impacted our entire systems?
Well, first of all, there's the bridges that I think you're calling the docks.
Yes, thank you.
And then there's the locks that go
Mm,
like this
right.
to create a barrier between the river and the lake. So that is how we reversed the Chicago River. So in a natural way, before we, 100 and plus years ago, 100 and decades, the Illinois River and the Chicago River flowed into, I don't know about the Illinois, but for sure, the Chicago River flowed into Lake Michigan.
Mhm.
So we reversed that because at that point there was no water treatment, and that was the best solution, is just to divert the water. But it is hardest to treat salt water. So all that fresh water that we're treating in our wastewater treatment plants and then sending down to the Mississippi, once it hits the Gulf of Mexico, it's, mixed with salt water. And that is kind of like lost to our, little water budget around Lake Michigan.
Mhm.
So whether that's not a issue over a huge amount of time, but you can imagine as we face climate change with highs and lows of that water level, we might want to, have options on the table. So this prohibition on water reuse is arbitrary. So they are reusing water in all the other Great Lakes states, although they may not be calling it reuse because of the Great Lakes Compact. They call it return. So I'm kind of pondering, what does it matter what we call it as long as we get home? So, and that is treating all of our water as if it is part of the water cycle. And we're going to see it again. We're going to use that water again, be it potable or, some other non-potable purpose.
Okay, and obviously, I think there is a growing concern though of, okay, at the local level, voters can at least interact with their politicians. But with this bill that you mentioned that was watered down, a water bill that was watered down, no pun intended, folks, because I noticed a couple people in my chat have mentioned that a water bill that was watered down. What can we do as voters, as constituents, to make sure such a future water bill, no pun intended, is not watered down? Because again, local action is key, and the thing is, there is a problem, especially in when it comes down to American politics, is that once an election cycle is over, a lot of people just want to decompress, not be involved. So what can we do to still remain engaged? What are you doing right now to help people stay engaged in this? Because this is a fight, and I think the goal that everyone wants to see is, our water not being contaminated, people not being poisoned, our infrastructure working properly. What are you doing to keep people engaged? What can people do to stay involved, especially after an election cycle?
Well, from my seat as an environmental engineer, water engineer that has worked internationally, I can identify what others are doing and what is best practice.
Mm-hmm.
And then I try to boil that down to one sentence and either suggest legislation to state reps and senators or find the legislation that's already being put forth. So in the bill that repeals the prohibition or may repeal the prohibition, that was my work coming to a state rep and then asking for that bill to be written. Of course, when I'm running, that's like a fascinating thing because people don't necessarily want to act. But as soon as I lost in 2022, then I had two different state reps asking me, like, I'll do that bill for you. So that's been a learning curve. There's another bill now. So there's forever chemicals. These are like Teflon, nonstick chemicals, firefighting foams that are now being regulated from the federal level. They have known health impacts, including cancer and birth defects, low birth weight babies. and they have finalized a maximum contaminant level for drinking water. And there's also there's thought that it's going to be listed as a hazardous waste, which puts a ton of complicating rules in place for how to dispose of it, which the water industry is in all of a pickle right now because it comes to us, right? So we didn't generate it, but we are the ones that it comes to. So that's too much to talk about right now. Love to talk. We could do a whole show about PFAS.
We would like to invite you on to explain a little bit more about this, especially, and again, it's not related to it, but it's been 10 years, folks, for Flint, Michigan, and their water is still contaminated. And sadly, Flint, Michigan isn't the only place that's dealing with that, but there are other issues of forever chemicals being in our drinking water. It's not just only our infrastructure. There are a lot of threats that are happening to a lot of people, and this is why we have to be engaged, especially with local politics, because this is where our voices can be heard. And if we can at least make some change there, perhaps potentially with enough force from the people, we can make bigger changes the higher we go up. So I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I just do want to say that I know a lot of us are burnt out by electoral politics, but we still have to have engagement and eternal vigilance on our part. So continue on.
Yeah, so the brief message is call your state reps and senators. So what I try to do is give you the language, because it took me years to find the language through working for the state of California and research projects to try to drill down. I know that there are problems, but like, how do you really target in on a potential solution? So I learned about our prohibition and why that is so problematic through working for the state of California on their, it was called a direct potable reuse initiative. I was one of 33 research projects. So there is another opportunity for us. So that bill passed, and it was literally me saying, call your state reps and senators and tell them to support House Bill 3046. That passed. Thank you to the entire public, anybody that called your state rep and senator to advance that. Now, there is another bill. It is a Senate bill, 0088, and this is source control for the chemicals. I got to tell you, people, the politicians hate it that I am referencing actual bills with exact language. They say that it is politicizing legislation.
Well, in the whole game of politics, I mean, you have to play the game, but also when it comes down to people's safety, I mean, look, the time for kindness and being nice, I think that that ship has sailed. And we do have to have that engagement. We have to at least get these politicians aware that, they work for us. It's not the other way around. We are supposed to live in a republic with democratic values. And the thing is, when the people ask our politicians, our leaders, to represent us and fight for us, that's their job. So at least you're causing some good trouble, some good ruckus, and it's making people more aware of what's happening in our environment. But I just want you to just elaborate a little bit more on this, because it seems to me that if these politicians really had the choice, they'd just be sitting on their hands 24/7 waiting for it to get to 4 o'clock so they can clock out of work.
I'm not sure that's the case, but when you get to the election piece, it just feels like all gloves are off, and they'll just say anything to suppress their opponent. So, when they first started saying that I was politicizing legislation by asking people to call their legislatures to support specific pieces of legislation that I felt were good for our drinking water, our environment, I was like, fascinating. Okay, so I call my attorney. I'm like, am I doing anything wrong? And he goes, no, it is your right as a citizen of the United States to support legislation. And from an engineer's perspective, I don't want to just tell you, oh, forever chemicals are bad. I want to give you specific tools, exact language. So if I can point to a specific piece of legislation, you can go read it for yourself and make up your own mind whether it's a good idea. So this Senate Bill 0088 is source control. And this is modeled after legislation from Maine. Maine is leading the country right now in source control. That's, again, a whole story for another episode on PFAS. But we can learn from them. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. This bill has shockingly stalled in the state legislature. So this, again, really requires the electorate to contact your state reps and senators and say, please support source control for our forever chemicals. And the reason why is if you walk into a mess, what are you going to do? Are you going to start cleaning it up, or are you going to turn off the source? You have to control the source first. So there's a lot of other opinions about what legislation needs to come next, but this needs to come first.
Absolutely. And I look, folks, we need to be well aware of what bills are being passed at the state level. I have mentioned about citizen ballot initiatives and their significance. And in Illinois, we are a ballot initiative state. And it's one of the good things I could say about Illinois politics is that, we at least people can get involved in this. I know I have a good friend of the show. His name is Roger Meadows. He talks a lot about citizen ballot initiatives. Is there going to be a point to where maybe you would be involved into maybe getting the people to be involved in, let's say, protecting our clean drinking water at the state level through a ballot initiative that would make not only future generations water safe, but also so that we don't have to go through this political red tape that we're all too familiar with here in Illinois? Is that something that you would consider?
I would love to talk more about that. So I am not a career politician, so I have a learning curve. I'm trying to surround myself with people who know how to get things done. I can identify specific problems and look for that one sentence solution or first of all, does it require legislation? Does it require rulemaking? What bucket are you trying to solve the problem with? Is it just a technology? Frankly, we have the technology to do a lot. And our policy and our lack of rules is what's holding us back. So I could stay in my professional bubble as a water engineer for the next, 30 years and get just about no progress. But by putting myself in this uncomfortable spot of running for politics, we already have a bill. We already have one passed. And that is proof that stepping into politics and wading through this water of, kind of a little mudslinging and saying that I'm politicizing bills, which is so fascinating because isn't that their job? Isn't that the job of all elected officials? Let me just push back on that one hard.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. So I would say, folks, if you are in the great state of Illinois, my home state, after all, it is important. Look, if I'm not going to tell people how to vote, but when it comes down to local levels and ballot initiatives, I'd be more than happy to email your campaign about ballot initiatives and why Illinois is a powerhouse when it comes down to ballot initiatives. I'd be more than happy to share that with your organization so that way you guys can have another tool and also get more involvement with the public, not only in your district, but outside of it as well, so that way things and change can happen. So real quick, I want to pull up your campaign website here, folks. And look, I'm proud to say that Hardlands Media, we did contribute to your first victory there. So there we go. I think that's fantastic. And let's make it a double win back for back. So this is your campaign website for my viewers and subscribers. Are there any kind of events that are happening before November 5th? We all know that's election night. Is there any kind of events or town halls that people need to be aware about? Any debates that are taking place so that way they can contribute to your campaign and follow you?
Well, honestly, finances is a big issue. Maybe not as much as the traditional campaigns, because I was able to win with $50,000, which everybody told me I needed $300,000 to win a traditional countywide MWRD race. Part of the problem is, has anybody ever heard of a debate for the water district? We are having so many debates in comparison to for the school board. So my local school board in District 2, they have been through about 6 different forums right now. And I keep on asking, like, hey, wouldn't we ever consider a debate for the water district? And people are just like, no, hard stop, no. And I know I work with Northside Democracy for America. Shout out for them, because they were literally the first organization to ever endorse me. But, they're one of the only ones that are an avenue to speak directly to the public. And I've had people at Northside say, wow, I had no idea that the water district office could be so impactful. And I'm like, well, yeah, if you identify the problems and then work with the state legislature, you're not going to get anything done just by working in either your professional bubble or your political bubble. We all need to work across domains if we're to change for climate change.
Absolutely. I think that's a great note to end it on. So, folks, Sharon, Waller for Water. Follow her on her social media. Follow her campaign. I'll be linking the campaign link in the comment section when we clip this video. So, folks, please, like, again, I know a lot of us burnt out by electoral politics, but when it comes down to the local level, and if you live in a ballot initiative state, please get involved, because that way there can be some change. There is some hope in this grim, dark future. So as always, Sharon, it's good to have you back on. It's very rare we actually get an uplifting story, especially in regards towards electoral politics. We helped contribute a little bit. Dare I say, I'm going to say maybe all the way, but we contribute a little bit to your victory. So all the best to you in your campaign. And if you are in her district, now's the time to get involved, vote, and step up, and maybe, dare I say, we can have a better future. So Sharon, all the best to you. Thank you so much for joining us, and we're going to continue on to the rest of our main show, so stay tuned, folks.
Thanks, Kit.
All the best to you. Take good care.
When you are not with where majority of Americans are, then, that is extreme. That is an extreme way of thinking.
Hoped you would never find out, knew that you had to know. Pulling what's left of my mind out, trying to tell you so. I've tried to block the light out, knew you could feel its glow. I've been here holding my hands out, trying to keep you close. Trying to keep you I really want to set you free, but I really want to let you be. And a part of me wished I could set myself aside, just let you take the ride, just chalk the rest up to destiny. I could let you believe that the only restraints in life are the size of your dreams. Let you believe each kid grows up with the world at their feet. When I know too well it's open season, I know they're taking stock and raising stocks and raising stock. And I'm simply not here to sit and watch as you learn the lesson all cogs are taught. Keep your head down and keep to task and just keep on blocking the rest of it all out. Just keep on with the rest of the herd of a million adjacent oblivious workers. The forest unseen for the trees, and the trees unseen for the fallout. Now what's more damning, baby, the truth or the ignorance? Fuck it, I honestly wonder if I see the answer so well. Baby, believe me well, I know it's scary, I scare myself. If I could find a way out of my head, I would run like hell. I would ditch this body politic, mindless occupant somewhere far from the dismal abyss. In the tranquil crystalline bliss of the beach, I could rest with the rest of the shells. And if anyone asks I'm anywhere else, if I'm really needed, just light the candle, then read the book, and then ring the bell. Oh, my untarnished heart, my little perfect soul, this world will melt your mercy down so they can sell its gold. This world will take your worth and then demand 1,000-fold. It's full of greedy pigs who'll eat you out of house and home. They'll strip your bank account and sweep you somewhere down the road, and then return to eat your tent and shitty bike you rode. Your bottled water, only shoes and coat and broken phone. Then smiling in your face, they'll tell you that the shelter's closed.
When you are not with where majority of Americans are, then, that is extreme. That is an extreme way of thinking.
Hoped you would never find out, knew that you had to know. pulling what's left of my mind out, trying to tell you so. I tried to block the light, I knew you could feel its glow. I've been here holding my hands out, trying to keep you close. Trying to keep you Oh, my untarnished heart, my little perfect soul. This world will melt your mercy down so they can sell its gold. This world will take your worth, then demand 1,000-fold. I tried to block the light just so I could keep you close.